just quickly do that. So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So this event is brought to you by DataTalks.Club, which is a community of people who love data. We have weekly events, and this is one of such events. And you can find out more about events if you go to our website, which is DataTalks.Club/events. And yeah, so you can see that for the next week, we already plan a couple of events. So one will be about data mesh. So I can just quickly click on this and show you. So the one that we, oops. Yeah, so next week we will have two events. So one will be about data mesh, which is a new thing nobody knows about. I also don't know what it is. So we will learn what it is next week. And then we will talk about on the podcast on Friday about data observability. And today, yeah, of course, if you want to stay up to date, the best way to do this is to join our Slack and subscribe our newsletter. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then you will get a notification about every event. And during our chat today, you can ask any question. There is a pinned link in the live chat on YouTube. Just click on this link and ask any question you want. And I will try to ask this question during our conversation. And that's actually it for the introduction. I think we can start. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so this week we will talk about career transitioning from data analytics to data science. And we have a special guest today, Andrada. Andrada worked for 2.5 years as a data analyst, and then she decided to make a career switch, and she became a data scientist. And today she will share her experience with us. So welcome.
Hello, everybody. I'm super glad I could join. And yeah, I hope you're going to get something interesting from this.
Yeah, definitely. So before we go into our main topic, so let's start with your background. Can you tell us a bit more about your career journey so far?
Yeah, so I did my undergrad in statistics. During that time, I wanted to get a little bit of domain knowledge hands-on, and I was a data analyst at Avon Cosmetics in my country, in Bucharest, Romania. Afterwards, I did a master's in data science and analytics in the UK. During the time, I found my passion about Kaggle on Kaggle as well. And afterwards, I came back and I started working at Andrada as a data scientist. And that's about it.
So now you're in Bucharest.
Yeah, I'm in Bucharest, and it's super sunny, and I'm super excited about it.
Does it often happen that you have sun?
Yeah, but in UK it wasn't the case.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you realize? So you were studying statistics, you were working as a data analyst. How did you realize that you want to go into data science?
So I guess it was a multitude of factors. One was that I had this. So I think the main reason, I would say, now that I'm thinking about it, was a girl in my class, in my statistics class, who was talking obsessively about data science. And I was a data analyst, and I was doing my thing, and I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. But she was talking a lot about data science, and I was watching also some machine learning articles and so on. So I was like, okay, what is this? It's so confusing to me. And afterwards, I started researching, and during that time, I also knew I wanted to do a master's. And because I already was working at Avon and I was a data analyst, I was like, okay, I want to do a master's a little bit deeper, not only or not on what I already know, right? So, okay, then I will start doing data science. And then because I wanted to kind of get ahead and not be a super noob when I went into that master's. I didn't know how hard it's going to be. I started some courses on my own on basics on data science. And then I kind of discovered how fantastic that is. And I started enjoying more and more. And because I kind of felt like I already knew some data analytics, although it might not be the case, I went into data science full on, and I've been doing it since then.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember which courses did you take?
Oh yeah, very, very vividly. So the first thing that introduced me to data science, the very first thing, and I highly recommend it to anybody who didn't do Python, who doesn't know about machine learning. I also only knew about regressions because I did them in statistics, linear regressions. So that's it. I highly recommend the data science and machine learning bootcamp on Udemy. It's from Joseph Portilla. I think Portilla, someone, he is absolutely amazing. Like, he did these courses so nicely, and he teaches you, okay, this is Anaconda, and this is how you install Jupyter Notebook. Okay, let's start with Python. Now I'm going to explain to you some pandas and some NumPy. Okay, now what's linear regression? Now I know you didn't come only for a linear regression, so take some, I don't know, random forest or decision trees and so on. So I really, at that moment, I understood what data science is, and I had my foundation. And afterwards, you can build on whatever you want. But that was the foundation I really, really needed.
So was it something that you did this course during your undergrad studies in statistics, or something later during your master's?
I did them before my master's. So I think it was the summer before my master's. I was still working, but I wanted to prepare a little bit. Yeah.
So there was a girl in your class,
yeah,
and she told you, okay, there is this thing, and you started to read more and more about that. Then you finally found that course on Udemy, right? And you did that course, and you understood, okay, this is a super cool thing. And then you decided, okay, I want to spend more time doing that, and you decided to go and do a master's.
And I guess Kaggle was a big factor as well, because it's the community and the comments and the medals and the fact that you can interact with somebody. Like, you post on Stack Overflow. I was dragged actually on Stack Overflow once I posted, and they downvoted my my post.
Oh, sorry.
Because I was like, oh, you didn't put the question right. Although I put a disclaimer there. I haven't done this before. Sorry. And I've never asked the question on Stack Overflow again. Whereas on Kaggle, you can just, ask, and people are so nice. So Kaggle was a big factor as well.
And how did you discover Kaggle? So you were doing this bootcamp course on Udemy. Was it? Did you find Kaggle after the course, during or like during your master's, or when?
So my first interaction with Kaggle was somebody told me during my undergrad studies, and I entered. I didn't understand anything was going on. This is a spaceship. I'm out. Afterwards, and this is why I'm saying this was a big foundation, such a big foundation for me. During that Udemy course, at some point or towards the end, I can't remember, he was like, you can practice more on Kaggle. I was like, oh, okay. I remember that spaceship I was so frightened about. So I naturally went into Kaggle, and I knew it was complicated. I didn't want to do anything with it. Just the courses, give me the courses. I want to understand more, learn more. And afterwards, because they kind of tease you from the courses into a competition, I entered really into the world. And this is how it happened.
And then what happened then?
Then I didn't even understand what I was doing when I remember I didn't even understand what I was doing when I was sharing the notebook.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the only thing I wanted to do was to improve my model. It was the basic sales high Iowa house price competition, which is the natural progression from the machine learning courses on Kaggle, which are, by the way, absolutely amazing and are, in my opinion, were best over that course on Udemy, because I had my foundation, but then I found out how to put some new questions to improve my models and make them better. Yeah, so I started trying to improve the models. And then because I wanted to understand more, I started, okay, so I learned visualization. Now I'm going to do a notebook on visualization. My only purpose of doing the notebooks was just to use the data sets on Kaggle because they were interesting, and then to practice my skill that I wanted to gain on Kaggle. So I wasn't posting to gain medals or something much more later. So I did this notebook, which is highly appreciated, although I don't understand why, because it's so basic. Whatever.
Maybe that's why, like, it's basic and simple, and people can just open it and understand what's going on. And I remember that on Kaggle, sometimes there is a good notebook that kind of gives you a good score, but you have no idea what's going on.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
so complex.
It's for smart people, very, very smart people.
And yeah, and maybe that's why, because like it's so simple and people can understand and relate and really follow through and see what's going on and learn from this. And yeah, just to, so you took some courses on Kaggle, right? And then at the end they kind of teased you to try competition, and then the competition was about predicting prices for houses, right? And you did now one notebook there, and as I understood, it kind of became popular, right? So people started to upload this notebook. No?
Oh, that one was, I think it still has 20 upvotes after 1 year and a half or something. No, that one. But although in my opinion it was pretty good, like I became obsessed on the leaderboard, and I jumped at some point after some hardcore hyperparameter tuning. I remember I stayed one day 9 hours straight on that hyperparameter tuning, but it was so exciting because the error was dropping and I was like, oh my God. Okay. And I remember I went to top 5% or 3% or something. And so it was super addictive. But what it happened afterwards, I started to kind of try to gain more knowledge on multiple things. And I remember I didn't have any knowledge on pandas and how to manage data frames. And it was taking me a lot of time to do anything. Visualizations, everything. It was taking me a long time because I was a beginner. And I did that Brazil fires analysis, which was just that. It was the moment when there was that problem in the world, but also I wanted to try to experience on a data set that I was passionate about. And that notebook, I remember I did somewhere in September last year. I never went to Kaggle until I think late October, just because I was doing my master's and I was kind of, what's this, you know? And when I went back to Kaggle, although I already had like 2 or 3 notebooks and no upvotes or whatsoever, or how do people get these? I don't understand. I had the silver medal or something. I was like, do people see this? What? And that's when actually everything started.
So as I understood, so like we talked quite a lot about Kaggle, and as I understood, that was one of the main drivers for your learning. So you picked up pandas, some other data wrangling skills, visualization, doing exploratory data analysis. And I think this is like when you learn something, especially data science, but it's not just for data science. When you learn anything, the important thing is to do projects. Would you say that for you, the projects that you did to learn data science were mostly coming from Kaggle, or you also did some other projects to learn it?
90% of them came from Kaggle. The other 10% were my dissertation and I think a few other projects that I had in my master's. And then I kind of translated them. Two of them, I actually translated them into Kaggle.
Mm-hmm.
So still Kaggle.
And how did you translate them? You were writing your thesis, you said, and then how did you put this to Kaggle? Just uploaded your notebooks there, or?
Not really, because it was some of them were data sensitive. For example, I had this amazing module in my master's that was hands-on, and we had three projects. Two of them, three projects. Two of them were in teams, and we would change team after each project, which was exhausting, but they wanted us to push us to interact with as many people as possible. And the last one was solo. And what happened, for example, from the first project, it was on audio files. Mm-hmm. And that project I use heavily in the bird call competition on Kaggle, heavily. Mm-hmm. The second one was on fraud detection. And after I finished it, what I did was I didn't use actually, the data they used was from Kaggle, but they altered it a little bit. So what I did was I just translated what I've done in that fraud detection challenge, I would say. I would call it to Kaggle using the data set on Kaggle, so not the one they provided. And the last one, I can't even remember what was the project about. Oh, the fraud detection was the last one. The one in between was the one with sensitive data that I couldn't use, but it was super like on optimization it was super complicated. Yeah. And my dissertation, for example, I did sentiment analysis on their bike sharing scheme in Belfast. I was in Belfast and I learned so many interesting things. And what I did is, after I finished, I remember the person who actually hired me, who's a grandmaster as well on Kaggle, Gabi Preda. Shout out to Gabi Preda. He's absolutely amazing. He texted me on LinkedIn and he said, have you seen the data set on COVID tweets? And I was like, oh, yeah. Do you want to do a sentiment analysis on it? And I was like, oh, yeah. And then I transcribed everything I kind of learned in my dissertation to a fun, interactive Kaggle notebook on that dataset. Yeah.
Okay, so I heard what you said. So you found a job because somebody from Kaggle reached you, and I think that person, I don't. What was the name?
Gabi Preda.
Okay. So he found you on Kaggle, of course, right? And then
or I found him, I think.
Okay. Okay.
I think it was more from me than from him. Yeah, so Kaggle was full of opportunities for me, and when I started, I never realized, and this is why I encourage every time. And I think people are getting bored. So if you listen to 2 talks from me, I'm a Kaggle maniac, but just because it brought me so many opportunities, and my job was one of them. Mm-hmm. And what happened is, at first, when I started doing Kaggle, I wasn't used to any Romanian name. So when I found the rankings, it took me like half a year into. Kaggle is super complex. I guess I wasn't curious enough. So when I went into rankings with the idea of I wanted to take a lot of people, especially from the top, and follow them. And I recommend this to everybody. Follow people on Kaggle, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or on anything they usually have the handle. If they are in top 50, it means they're very top 100, top 200. I think I took to top 200 people. It means that they are super passionate, and it might be that you have something to learn from them. Anyways, and when I saw in top 5 or 6 or something a Romanian name, I was just shocked. I was like, oh, we can do this too? What? And I followed him. And I was like, I was super chill. I didn't text him or anything. I was like, well, I think a contributor at that time or something like that. I'm not gonna do this. And afterwards, I think I don't know how he remarked me, but at some point he followed me back and he left me like a super sweet comment, super genuine comment on one of my notebooks. It was a sentiment analysis of Rick and Morty tweets, which it's one of my favorites. But he left a comment there, and I remember I was so excited, like I was super happy about it. And afterwards, when I realized I wanted to come back to Bucharest, when I started searching jobs, I texted him as well. And I would also recommend this to anybody, because finding a job, you need to apply to 100 to get 5 responses back, and maybe one is gonna say yes. So I would recommend to text to anybody. And I knew he was a lead in Java. I wanted him. Gabi, I hope you're not listening to me. I really wanted a mentor, and the data science field is changing a lot fast, and you can't be a person that isn't open to change to be a good data scientist. Because if you're using BERT today, in 2 years, it's gonna be obsolete. Maybe not BERT is a good example, but look at, I don't know, just simple vanilla neural networks. They aren't used anymore. You use more complex algorithms, or you aren't using a regression. You are using an XGBoost, for example, or random forest or whatever. So you need a person who's open, who likes it, who reads, who is passionate about data science. And he is, and I knew he was, just because he was so active on Kaggle and he liked it, and I saw he had an interest in it. So I was thinking that I really wanted to find a job, not really, it wasn't the job I was looking for, it was kind of a person that would teach me things. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of interviews with people that I could have went further, but I just stopped them just because I knew if I get this job, I won't like this person, mm-hmm. and I won't be able to work with him. Yeah, so I found Gabi on Kaggle, and I'm super lucky that he saw opportunity in me, and I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah, maybe we can talk a bit about this process for looking for a job. So you said that you need to apply for 100 positions to get just one job offer. So for you, how many did you apply to?
It wasn't 100, just because, but it took me a long time. Mm-hmm. But it depends. It depends a lot, and you don't need to go into looking for a job thinking that it's gonna take me a long time, because it might not. But usually, and in my case, I remember I started, so to give you a comparison, I am the struggling one, usually. And I had another colleague in my master's who she's super smart, and she found a job much quicker. So it took me, for example, I started looking for a job in June, and it took me until October to get the proposition. She, on the other hand, started looking in August, and late August, somewhere beginning of August, And in late August, she already told me she was having an offer, kind of. So it depends, and it's hard, and you're looking at other people and maybe they are more lucky, but you need to be resilient. I didn't apply to 100 jobs there just because I remember I was having a habit. Every Friday I would stay for 2 or 3 hours to apply, just because I couldn't find 100 jobs to apply to because it was COVID. So I was trying in Bucharest, which is a it's a metropolitan area. It's the capital of Romania. But I was also trying to other countries to be remote. There weren't many positions for a junior data scientist. You know that, so everybody looks for a trainee data scientist with the senior knowledge and a junior data scientist with a senior knowledge, but the salary of a traineeship or something. I didn't fit. So it took me a while. And I had many rejections as well, which hurt.
Sorry to hear. What were the main difficulties for you? So you said it was, so you started in June and you found in October. So I think it's like, I don't know, 5 months. It took 5 months.
Yeah.
So what were the main difficulties for you in this process?
The main difficulty, and it still is a big difficulty for me, is the coding part.
Okay. So is it like a lot of competition, or just people don't want to hire juniors to work remotely, or?
No, it's that, so in all the interviews I had, besides the one for Andrada, so with Gabi, so all the other interviews I had were testing me on coding, but on algorithmic coding.
Like lead code style.
It was, I remember I had an interview for this company. I'm not gonna name names just because it doesn't matter. And my partner was having an interview exactly for the same company. I was having it for Romania, but he was having it for, I think, London. It doesn't matter, but it was the same company. And we had a part of one day, he had a coding interview, and I also had a technical interview, not a coding. He had an easier, so he's in cybersecurity. He had an easier algorithm than I had, which I was applying for a data scientist. And I was like, what's happening? And when they tell you, okay, try to solve this, and they watch you, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're telling me. Please, can we please talk about data sets? Can we please talk about projects? What? And I remember I was struggling a lot just because I was doing a lot of algorithmic coding online with exercises, which I hate. I genuinely hate, because these are the interviews. Whereas, for example, for Andrada, what happened is I just had a normal conversation, because they already kind of knew that I knew data science, and I know at least roughly how to code because of my projects on Kaggle. So the only thing was talking about, okay, how would you solve this problem? Okay, what about this? Okay, so we have this project, or what projects have you been working on? How did you solve it? So it was more about, how would you say, how you think a problem. Not, I'm gonna see if you know this algorithm that you need to know by heart, and if you don't, I'm not gonna hire you.
Okay. Yeah. So most of the interviews were of this sort of asking like, okay, like I don't know, one famous example I often got in the past was, you know, you have like a string with brackets, opening brackets and closing, and you need to find out if it's balanced or not balanced.
Oh, okay.
And this kind of stuff that you don't need at work at all. So like more like a brain teasers. So I guess most of the interviews, they were asking for these kind of things, right?
They put me to create a class that would receive I'm trying to remember the problem correctly. It's a popular one. And if you try to find it on Google, you'll find, but I can't remember the name. It's the thing that you have a tree, and on any node you give, you want to get the other nodes that have the same neighbors. It was something like that. And I don't even work with classes. Like I usually don't, just with PyTorch. And it's usually pretty, if you know a few examples, you can make them. But I was like, I have no idea how to, what can you, so it was very difficult for me. And usually you finish these interviews kind of negatively impacted, being like, oh, I'm super stupid. Like I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. But it's not true. It's and the other interview, for example, that I had, it was for pandas, but they didn't let me Google, which I think it's something stupid as well, just because you Google a lot at work. And they put me also, it was on pandas, but they put me to do this weird long kind of, not really function, but when you call multiple pandas function to get something, a filtering of some sorts from a table. And I managed to get almost to the end. And I remember the guy being like, oh, you should know this. This is super simple. And when they tell you it's super simple, you're feeling more stupid, you know? Yeah. So in my opinion, they are not realistic.
Okay, that must be a very frustrating experience. But yeah,
we
also
all go through this.
Yes, but what I heard is like your visibility on Kaggle and your passion, because I hear from you that you're super passionate about Kaggle and community there. So you had you had some visibility. You have visibility there. People know you. People see your notebooks. People see what you do there, and for people in the community, they recognize you, right? And then this also helps, having some visibility in a community to get a job. And I guess this was one of the factors how you managed to eventually get that one offer at the end, right? From this company.
It's better than only to have a CV, to be like, I know Python, to also be like, I know Python. Look, my Kaggle profile, I use Python. I am familiar with PyTorch. It's just the CV, whereas this other guy who's like, I know PyTorch. Look, these are 3 projects on Kaggle that I did using PyTorch. Because you can see, and I don't know how familiar are companies with Kaggle, but I think they are starting to. And having a portfolio is super important rather than only having CV. CV is resume. Sorry, resume.
Yes, doesn't matter. I think it's the same thing. Okay. Yeah, and it can be Kaggle. It can be maybe just a GitHub profile, or I don't know,
anything.
A homepage with projects or blog posts. Okay. But I think the good thing about Kaggle is you have a community element there. If you just write blog posts, maybe nobody sees this blog post. But on Kaggle, you have this community. You also have this social element where people can follow each other. So every time you create a notebook, I don't know how many followers you have on Kaggle, but all these people see your notebook and then they rush and upvote the notebook. And
I don't think the followers see, because I have many people that I follow, and I don't know how the algorithm works, but on the feeds, I don't see them usually.
Okay.
But yes, it's a big interactivity, and if you're doing some amazing work, people eventually are going to follow. But it doesn't. So I have many notebooks that I'm not that proud of, that are super upvoted, and I have other notebooks that are my pride and joy, truly, and have very little or almost no upvotes at all. So it's the thing that you want to create. It's not really the upvotes matter, and it wouldn't be true if I would say they don't matter at all. They matter, but it's not good to start working on Kaggle with that goal in mind, because you aren't gonna get far by looking at the numbers.
Yeah, we have a related question. So why do you prefer Kaggle over GitHub for showcasing your project's work and code?
I guess just because I'm more familiar with it. Oh, I link GitHub with coding and with libraries, whereas I link Kaggle with projects and with community and showcasing some sort of algorithm or result or whatever. And this is why I thought at some point to move my notebooks to GitHub as well, but I don't think it's gonna do me any good or any more justice. So, but there are people that have quite amazing GitHubs. So if you are the person that makes life easier doing functions and creating libraries or amazing stuff, go ahead and do GitHub.
Okay. And so, as I understood, for you, when you were making the switch from analytics to data science, the biggest problem for you was coding, right? So, like, especially in interviews, like, how do you pass all these coding interviews that are difficult and stressful, and also sometimes they say, "Oh, it's easy," but for you, it's not, and it's demotivating. But yeah, there were also things that you did as a data analyst, analyst that were helpful for you, right? I don't know, some data wrangling skills. So what were the things that were useful for you as a data scientist now?
I guess the most important thing, I guess, it was the process of solving a problem. Because so I did statistics, and at work I was doing data analytics, which aren't quite hand in hand, but these two as a mix gave me, I remember the most important thing I learned from Avon was triple, quadruple check whatever you did. You did a group by, check the data to see if everything is fine. Because I sent some reports that were quite messed up to 60 people, and then 60 people came back to me being like, no, you're wrong. And then I sent them back being like, look, now they are good. And then 60 people came back to me being like, no, you're wrong again. So triple check the data, which is also super important in machine learning, because you can have data leakage. You have missing data that needs to be tackled. You have variables that you need to understand them. You need to have business knowledge and domain knowledge, which also is super helpful. From statistics, I remember the distributions, understanding the data, understanding what's a tabular data set, not really a data frame, but tabular data set, understanding KPIs. These all are super important within the data pre-processing and analyzing part. And now that I'm talking, I realize maybe this is why I like it so much rather than hardcore modeling, I like that part as well, but again, that part needs a little bit more coding expertise that I am struggling to gain as I move forward. I want to gain more, but it's just an area that for me doesn't come as easily as exploring and losing yourself into the data and understanding things that are super, super interesting. So correlations as well. These particularities and subtleties. Now, there are many people that come to me and ask, but isn't this the harder part and the coding is the easy part? I'm participating in some courses now where the class is talking to the teacher and they are like, can you please teach us more coding and less slides?
Mm-hmm.
And he comes back and says, well, you'll see the slides are more important than the coding. Now, I disagree.
Okay.
Because this is my opinion and this is my background talking. Maybe a software engineer is going to be disagreeing with me as well. We can agree to disagree, but in my opinion, it's easier to understand the concept and it's easier to, you don't really need to go so deep into the mathematics. Only if you want to do research, then you'll need to. But just to use the algorithms, you don't need to go so deep into mathematics. Whereas the coding part, you need to know how to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if you know the idea, you need to understand how to do them. And at work now as well, the most struggling part is when I know what to do. It happened to me these 2 days. I know what to do. I understand the problem. How do I do this? And it takes me a little bit longer, which is annoying, but I'm going to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I understand that I also see that in other data analysts, so who are pretty good at understanding data, getting insights from the data, querying data, do data manipulation and calculating some statistics, doing exploratory data analysis. But when it comes to coding, it becomes difficult. I know you're still going through and learning that. Maybe you can share some plans, like how you want to do this, like how you want to approach that. Are you taking some courses to improve that side, or?
At the moment, I stopped completely kind of doing courses because I found out through experience that the best way to learn something is through projects, like exactly like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So what usually is the plan and has been for the past 1 year and a half, is find a competition. Maybe I can't wait for an NLP competition, actually. Kaggle, can you please give us an NLP? I remember last year when I was like, no, I'm not doing NLP, computer vision. They had a bunch of natural language processing competitions, and now they don't have any, and they have a lot of computer vision. But what I usually do is I focus on a subject or something that sounds interesting, and then I think 80% of the times I join a competition without having no idea how to solve the problem, like no clue whatsoever. But then the plan is to study very, very well a few notebooks, because, and I say this a lot in my notebooks, the baseline, many times the baseline is from other people, like it's not mine. And I feel like sometimes people are ashamed that they aren't original. You can't invent the wheel. And if you're learning, you'll need to practice. And you can practice from these people that are super knowledgeable. So take their code, is fine, twist it and do something, and then build upon it and say, okay, this is the baseline from this person. Amazing, thank you so much. So give them credits. But I usually, and this is the plan, I take the code from somebody, I try to explain it very, very deeply, because knowledgeable people on Kaggle, although they explain a lot, they don't explain enough. And I need to get even deeper and to start coding myself and rename the variables like I'm gonna understand them, like I'm gonna, and so on. And afterwards, after I understood everything, I can start trying to build upon it and research and look at many other more Kaggle notebooks and so on. Mm-hmm. So this is the plan, and it has been working pretty well.
Mm-hmm. So basically, you take a notebook that somebody shared, you try to decompose it, understand what every line is doing, you try to rearrange the code, you try to change the variables until you understand every bit of every line of code, every letter there in the code, and then you start to improve that code. To try to I don't know, try a new model, maybe do something else there. Okay, because we have a question from Mert. What do you think about learning with imitating? If we try to imitate and then just copy other notebooks and understand, do you think it's a good way? And I think you just answered that, because this is what you're doing. Maybe not imitating, but you know, taking what others did and trying to really decompose it into simplest pieces, and then understand each piece separately, right? And then kind of have this big picture.
And the best way is, and I recommend this a lot, but this helps. And I've did this even from the beginning, from their Portilla's Udemy course. Don't fork the notebooks, because you already have the code. Start a new notebook and then have the other one that you are imitating, like you said, on the other, on the left side or somewhere else, to look at it. And then take each line of code one by one and write them yourself. Because this is practice. This is not just reading, you are actually writing them. And it's gonna imprint in your memory. And if you're doing this 5 times, you're gonna know every single letter in that notebook. And this way, you can start printing, you can start adding or subtracting without already having a bunch of code and then trying to add or remove or change something. Because you won't really understand as much then. You want to take it with you to dirty your hands. This is what I'm trying to say.
And how much time do you spend on this decomposition? Because I imagine that's not 5 minutes, right? It's
a few days.
A few days. So that's a few evenings, right? Or
yeah. Oh, to say it depends, but it can take from 6, 7, 8 hours to. I had one that I had an error. It took me a while to debug. That took, I think, 5 almost full days. But I ended up with a pretty nice notebook afterwards.
Yeah, I remember with this approach, I also try to follow something similar. I'm not active on Kaggle anymore, but I was at some point. I was trying to do something similar. And then I was trying to decompose a notebook. And then I thought, okay, now I understand what's going on. And then I rerun, and my model is 2 times worse than the original one, right? And then, okay, what did I change when it stopped working? Like, because the code in my head, it's the same, right? I
this
just
happens to me as well.
So, and then I would spend, I don't know, like many hours trying to understand what did I break? And then what I ended up doing is just, okay, I'm throwing away this notebook. I'm starting from scratch and then executing every cell and then changing like a tiny bit and then making sure the results stay the same. And that takes a lot of time. That's like, I don't know, many days.
I can feel your pain and I can relate. I know. But this is how you learn the best.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah. If we go a bit back to your masters, we have a question from Zach. Did you find your masters in data science? Like, do you think it was helpful for your career, or maybe not significantly?
I'd never like this question, just because I feel it's so.
You don't have to answer that.
Everybody has have their own experience. For me, my master's was a great time to have also a lot of time to Kaggle, which I am very grateful. My master's put some sort of arrangement, because when you start data science, you're like, machine learning, okay, deep learning, computer vision, natural language, XGBoost, what PCA, what's everything? It's extremely wide and broad, and you don't know what to start with. So my master's really helped me decompose that knowledge and start indeed step by step. And I remember when I was doing my statistics module, I was just finishing and understanding a little bit of how to process the data. And then I went into understanding Python, and then I started doing more and more pre-processing on Kaggle. And then the data mining module was about machine learning, and I was doing more machine learning on Kaggle. So I was pairing whatever I was learning. However, unfortunately for me, and this was a bummer, really, that because I was doing so much Kaggle and because I was learning so much on my own, I didn't quite get more from my masters besides learning R. I need to give them that. But besides that, unfortunately, even deep learning, which they were calling it machine learning, but the deep learning part I learned from YouTube, and it took me 2 months on YouTube, and again printing everything and so on. But unfortunately, they didn't manage to give me more. Yeah.
Okay. Let's say, so I followed a similar path to you, even though my background was in software engineering. I also decided to do a master's, but eventually what helped was online courses and Kaggle to really understand machine learning. But yeah, probably masters was still useful, like you said. They explained where each piece of the puzzle belongs. So probably yes. But
I would
also,
repeat it. If I'd be again in the same place, I would repeat it 100%.
Okay. Yeah, but what I'm trying to ask is, often people who go from analytics to data science, they don't always, it's not always possible for them to go and do a master's, to spend 1 year doing that. Was it 1 year for you? Because I think in the UK it's 1 year, right? In Europe, in continental Europe, or at least in Germany, and I think in most of the other countries, it's 2 years. So not everyone has this luxury to stop working for two years and completely immersed into that. Maybe you have some recommendations for them, like what would you do if you couldn't do masters and let's say you had a full-time job as a data analyst? Like, would it also be follow the same path, like do this course on Udemy, do courses on Kaggle, then try to get into notebooks and all these things we discussed? Or would you suggest something else on top of that?
Yes. So exactly what you said. I wouldn't suggest anything else, just because I don't have, I am afraid to suggest some things that I didn't do, just because it wouldn't be appropriate. However, if you start, as I said, from scratch. If you do that course, or if not, you can safely go onto Kaggle and start from there. You don't really need that course. You can start from Kaggle straight up. And for 6 months, maybe to 1 year, every evening, 3 days a week, let's say, you emerge a few hours into the data science part. At the end of that year, you'll have knowledge, you'll have to show something, which is super important. You'll have community. If you are engaging with people on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or I don't know, anywhere you can find. On YouTube, also Ken G, who's one of the ambassadors for ZBHP and NVIDIA. He's awesome, by the way, and he's doing the 66 days data science challenge. You can go and follow him. You don't need a teacher to tell you what to do. And there are lots of resources out there. You can pivot from data analysis to data science in maximum 1 year, if you're like relaxing and taking your time and enjoying the process, maybe 1 year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then this aspect of going through coding exercise, like coding interviews, that's probably stressful part, but you have to go through this, right? So there is no way around that.
Unfortunately, no.
Or maybe become a Kaggle Grandmaster in notebooks.
Doesn't help.
Doesn't
Or
help.
for me, it doesn't help. They still want to stress you and put you under pressure. Like
you need to find also right people. So I guess this is where the networking aspect comes into play. That and you have that aspect networking on Kaggle and probably other social platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter. Like you connect to people, and then probably it helps for them to see you, to see what you do, and then they already know you. They already know what you're capable of because they can see your notebooks, and that probably helps with to at least start the conversation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And one thing we didn't talk about. So we talked that you are Kaggle Grandmaster in notebooks, and I think we also maybe can spend a couple of minutes talking about that. Because for many people, when they hear Kaggle, what they imagine is, I think you mentioned that once, like a spice ship of models.
A spaceship,
yeah, like all these models put on top of models, put on top of models. That at
a
the
lot
end
of
you have,
buttons.
yes, but Kaggle is not just about that, right? And you don't need to focus just on competitions to get to learn a lot from Kaggle. And so what you did, you followed the notebook kind of tier. I don't know if you can call that, but the notebook path.
Yeah.
And yeah, so what I wanted to say is like you don't have to focus on competitions because it's difficult, right? It's difficult to get this gold model in competition. It's you need to spend so much time there, like, but you don't have to do this, right? To to learn things.
Besides this discussion, which I think they started putting medals in discussions just because there were indeed some people that were very helpful in their comments, and I completely understand that tier. You can learn from any of the three tiers, I think they are called. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Competitions, of course, just because you are training, you're looking at other people and the leaderboard, and they are absolutely fruitful and amazing. Notebooks, again, because not all my notebooks are on competitions, but you can do notebooks on competitions to, again, understand the process better. You can also do them on different topics that you like, or something maybe you're passionate, like I was, about sentiment analysis. Do a notebook on sentiment analysis, see how you can gather the data and so on. And talking about the data sets, I feel like they are a little bit underappreciated but they are super important because if you, because I told you about Gabi. So Gabi Preda, he just became a datasets grandmaster. He's 3 times grandmaster now on Kaggle, and he scrapes the information and he updates it, which is an effort on its own. But the idea of scraping the data and making little scripts or big scripts, I don't know what he's doing or how advanced he is, but just gathering the data and putting it in a clean format, and it's a skill on its own. And data sets, I feel like they are the hardest to gain a medal in, just because it's very hard to put out a data that's super important and very valuable to the people. So data sets, again, it's super easy, especially if you want to do be a data engineer. In my opinion, I know a guy who wants to be that, and he wants to start Kaggle only for data sets because he likes to take clutter and make it neat, I guess. He's a clutter, like a clean freak or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can learn in any tier.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anything else we didn't cover what you wanted to share?
I don't think so.
Any last tips?
Yeah. Use social media.
Okay. Yeah. Which one? Twitter, LinkedIn, or doesn't matter?
Both heavily. Yeah.
How should we use this? Like, let's say somebody is looking for a job. What should they do?
Try to build, and this takes time. This takes time, a lot of time, but try to make your social media, especially LinkedIn and Twitter, as focused on data science as possible, and try to showcase there your work, share data science things related, and everything that gathers a community and builds a community, because there comes the opportunities as well, and there comes the more knowledge, because you meet more people, and having a community is extremely important. It's maybe more important than being very good at something. If you need to have the community, in my opinion, and it is super important, and people don't talk enough about this. So use social media to showcase your work, to show that you're passionate. Be kind, be gentle. Thank to people that helped you, super important. And try to add more to this community. Try to be a bonus, not something that, I don't know, uses all that information, but is just trying to keep it to its own or something like that. So give and share, and the world will be a better place.
Yeah, that's a great way to finish today's conversation, I think. So people, where can people find you? So LinkedIn, Twitter, Kaggle. I'll share all the links after the chat. I'll put them in description.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess that's all for today. Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us today and sharing all this experience, and also being open about all the struggles you had. And I think many people who are going through a similar transition now will appreciate that, especially this interview part, because I know it's not easy. So thanks a lot, and thanks everyone who is listening, and drop by next week when we have events.
Yeah, and subscribe.
Yeah, of course.
I always wanted to say that on YouTube.
Okay. So subscribe and press exactly. Likes, comments, subscribe.
Yeah.
Okay. It was nice talking to you. So,
thank you so much.
Have a great weekend.